Before we dive into this story, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. This is a tale that might hit close to home for many of you. Enjoy the journey. My name is Harold Whitman, and I'm 72 years old. I never thought I'd be sitting here telling you the most painful story of my life. But sometimes, the truth needs to be told, no matter how much it hurts. It was a Tuesday morning in March, when my whole world came crashing down. I remember it like it was yesterday because that's the day I discovered that the people I loved most in this world had been destroying me from the inside out. I was looking for my reading glasses in Miranda's old room downstairs. She's my daughter, 45 years old now. She lives upstairs with her husband Derek and their son Tyler. Has been that way for 8 years. I thought I was helping them save money, you know? Being a good father, a good grandfather. That's when I found them. Hidden behind some old photo albums in her dresser drawer. Stacks and stacks of bank statements. Not mine, but with my name on them. My hands started shaking as I opened the first one. Transaction after transaction I never made. Withdrawals I never authorized. My own signature, but wrong somehow. $200 here. $500 there. Sometimes 1,000 in a single day. All from accounts I thought were safe. Accounts I had been building for 30 years of backbreaking work. I sat there on that old wooden chair, the same chair where I used to read her bedtime stories when she was little, and I felt something die inside me. The numbers didn't lie. The dates went back years. 3 years, 4 years, maybe more. My chest felt tight, like someone was squeezing my heart in a vice. I kept flipping through those statements, hoping I was wrong, hoping there was some mistake. But there wasn't. Each page was another nail in the coffin of my trust. "Dad, what are you doing in here? What are you doing?" I looked up, and there was Miranda standing in the doorway, pretty as always with those green eyes she got from her mother. But now, looking at her, all I could see was a stranger, a thief wearing my daughter's face. I held up the statements with trembling hands. "What is this, Miranda?" The color drained from her face faster than water down a drain. For just a moment, just one moment, I saw something that might have been shame flicker across her features. But then it was gone, replaced by that defiant look I'd been seeing more and more over the years. "Dad, I can explain." "Explain?" And my voice cracked like an old piece of wood. "Explain how you've been stealing from me for years. Explain how you looked me in the eye every morning and said, 'Good morning, Daddy,' while you were robbing me blind." She took a step into the room and I actually flinched. My own daughter, and I flinched like she was going to hit me. "It's not what you think," she started, but I wasn't hearing it anymore. The betrayal was so deep, so complete, that I felt like I was drowning. Everything I had worked for my entire life, every extra shift I picked up, every weekend I spent working construction instead of fishing like I wanted to, every sacrifice I made so she could have a better life than I did, it was all gone, stolen by the very person I was trying to protect. I looked down at those statements again, and one number caught my eye: the current balance on my main savings account. The account that should have had $38,000 in it, balance $247.83. 37 years of savings, gone. That's when I knew. Everything I thought I knew about my life, about my family, about the people I trusted most in this world. It was all a lie, and this was just the beginning. Let me tell you about the life I built with these two hands. Maybe then you'll understand why what my daughter did cut so deep. I started working when I was 14 years old, not because I wanted to, but because my family needed the money. My father had died in a factory accident, and my mother was trying to raise 4 kids on her own. I dropped out of school and got a job at the local brick factory, loading trucks from dawn to dusk, 43 years. That's how long I worked construction and factory jobs. 43 years of getting up at 5 in the morning, packing my lunch in an old metal box, and coming home so tired I could barely eat dinner. My hands are permanently stained from concrete and motor oil. My back aches every single day from lifting heavy materials and working bent over for decades. But I never complained, not once, because I had a dream. I met Miranda's mother, Sarah, when I was 28. She was the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen. working as a waitress at the diner near the construction site. She had this laugh that could light up the whole room, and she saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself. We got married 6 months later, and Miranda was born 2 years after that. Sarah died when Miranda was only 12. Cancer took her fast, faster than we could fight it. I remember holding Sarah's hand in that hospital room, promising her I'd take care of our little girl no matter what. And I did. I worked 2 jobs for years. Construction during the day, cleaning office buildings at night. I wanted Miranda to have everything I never had. Piano lessons, nice clothes, a college fund. I saved every penny I could, cutting corners wherever possible. You want to know what I ate for lunch for 20 years? A peanut butter sandwich and an apple. Same thing every day, because it was cheap and it filled me up. I drove the same beat-up truck for 15 years because I couldn't justify spending money on myself when Miranda needed things. When Miranda graduated high school, I had saved enough to send her to community college. She dropped out after 1 semester, said it wasn't for her. I didn't push it. I figured everyone has their own path, right? When she got pregnant with Tyler at 25, I was there. When Derek couldn't hold down a job, I was there. When they needed a place to live, I opened my home. I thought I was being a good father. I thought I was doing what Sarah would have wanted. Over the years, I managed to buy 3 small lots around town. Nothing fancy, just little pieces of land that I thought might be worth something someday. I paid cash for each one, saving for months at a time. Those lots represented my security, my legacy. Something to leave behind so Miranda and Tyler would never have to struggle like I did. My savings account grew slowly but steadily. Every month I'd put away whatever I could. Sometimes it was $50, sometimes $200 if I'd worked overtime. I watched that number climb over the years like a father watches his child grow. It represented every sacrifice, every missed meal, every ache in my bones. By the time I turned 70, I had built something. Not much by some people's standards, but for a man who started with nothing, it felt like a fortune. $38,000 in savings, 3 lots worth about $15,000 each, a paid-off house, and a decent monthly pension from the state. I thought I had done it. I thought I had secured not just my future, but my family's future too. Derek lost another job about 8 years ago, his 4th or 5th, I lost count. That's when they asked if they could move into the upstairs part of my house temporarily, just until they got back on their feet. The house had been set up as a duplex years ago when Sarah was still alive, so it made sense. Temporarily turned into 8 years. I didn't mind. I told myself it was nice having family close by, even if Tyler barely acknowledged my existence, and Derek treated me like I was invisible. Miranda would come downstairs sometimes and we'd talk about old times, about her mother. Those moments made everything else worthwhile. I paid all the utilities, the property taxes, the insurance. They were family after all. When Derek was between jobs, which was often, I'd slip Miranda $100 or $200 for groceries. I never asked for it back. Family takes care of family. I trusted them completely. Why wouldn't I? Miranda was my daughter, my flesh and blood. Tyler was my grandson. I had raised Miranda to know right from wrong, to be honest and hard-working like her mother. Looking back now, I can see how naive I was, how blind. The signs were there, but I explained them away because I wanted to believe in the family I thought I had built. I wanted to believe that all those years of sacrifice meant something, that the love I gave would be returned. I was wrong about everything. I should have known something was wrong years ago, but when you love someone, you make excuses for behavior that would be unacceptable from anyone else. You tell yourself they're just going through a rough patch, that things will get better. You convince yourself that family means something. Living with Miranda, Derek, and Tyler was like walking on eggshells every single day. My own house, the house I had worked 30 years to pay off, became a place where I felt like an unwelcome guest. It started small. Derek would leave his dishes in the sink for days, expecting me to clean them. When I'd mention it politely, he'd give me this look like I was bothering him about something trivial. "I work all day, Harold," he'd say, even though his idea of work was showing up late and leaving early before getting fired again. Tyler was worse. That boy treated me like I was invisible most of the time. I'd say good morning, and he'd walk right past me like I hadn't spoken. When he did acknowledge me, it was usually to ask for money or to complain about something. The Wi-Fi was too slow, the house was too cold, the food I bought wasn't what he wanted. One time I came home from grocery shopping, spending my own pension money on food for all of us, and found Tyler eating a sandwich in my kitchen. He looked at the bags I was carrying and said, "Did you remember to get the good lunch meat this time? That cheap stuff you bought last week tasted like cardboard." I just stood there, holding those heavy bags, looking at this 20-year-old kid who had never worked a day in his life, criticizing the food I was providing for free. And you know what I did? I apologized. I actually apologized for not buying expensive enough lunch meat with my own money. Miranda wasn't much better. She had this way of making me feel guilty for existing in my own home. If I watched TV in the living room, she'd sigh loudly and say things like, "I guess we'll have to watch our shows upstairs again." If I cooked dinner, she'd wrinkle her nose and say, "That smells strong, Dad. Maybe open a window." The noise was constant. Derek would play his music loud until all hours. Tyler would have friends over, and they'd stomp around upstairs like a herd of elephants. When I'd politely ask them to keep it down, especially after 10 at night, Miranda would get defensive. "Dad, we live here too. We can't walk around on tiptoes all the time." But it wasn't their house. It was my house. I was letting them stay there out of the goodness of my heart, and they acted like I was the one who should be grateful. The disrespect got worse over the years. Derek would use my tools without asking and leave them scattered around the yard, rusted from rain. Tyler would eat the last of whatever I'd bought for myself without a second thought. Miranda would make plans that involved my time and money without consulting me. "Dad, we told Derek's mother you'd pick her up from the airport tomorrow," she'd announce, not ask. Like my schedule didn't matter, like I was their personal driver. I started spending more and more time in my bedroom just to avoid the tension. 70 years old, and I was hiding in my own house. I'd eat my meals alone while they laughed and talked upstairs, their family complete without me. The worst part was how they talked about money, always complaining about not having enough, always hinting around for me to help. Derek would say things like, "Must be nice to have that pension coming in every month, Harold. Some of us have to actually work for our money." That cut deep. This man who couldn't keep a job for 6 months was lecturing me about work. Me who had worked 43 years without ever being fired, without ever calling in sick unless I was dying. Miranda was more subtle, but just as cruel. She'd make comments about how comfortable I was, how lucky I was to have savings. Like luck had anything to do with it. Like I hadn't earned every penny through blood, sweat, and sacrifice. "You don't understand what it's like, Dad," she'd say. "You don't have a family to support anymore." That was the cruelest thing of all, because I thought I did have a family to support. I thought that's exactly what I was doing, supporting my family. But to them, I wasn't family. I was just someone who paid the bills. I should have put my foot down. I should have told them to shape up or ship out, but I was scared of being alone, scared that if I pushed too hard, I'd lose them completely. So I accepted the disrespect, swallowed my pride, and told myself that at least I had people around me. What I didn't know was that while I was bending over backward to keep the peace, while I was sacrificing my dignity and my comfort for them, they were planning something far worse than simple disrespect. They were planning to rob me of everything I had. And the cruelest part, they looked me in the eye every single day while they did it. I'll never forget the day I first realized something wasn't right. It was a Thursday afternoon in October, about 6 months before I found those bank statements. I was looking for my reading glasses. Seemed like I was always misplacing them back then. And I decided to check Tyler's room upstairs. I knocked first, of course. I always respected their privacy, even in my own house. When nobody answered, I pushed the door open, just planning to do a quick scan for my glasses. That's when I saw it. Sitting right there on Tyler's nightstand, clear as day, my credit card, My MasterCard with my name on it, Harold J. Whitman, just lying there like it belonged to him. My heart started pounding. I picked it up with shaking hands, staring at that familiar piece of plastic. I knew I hadn't given it to him. I always kept my wallet in my bedroom dresser, and I was careful about my cards. Had to be. Living on a fixed income teaches you to watch every penny. I stood there in that messy room, surrounded by Tyler's clothes scattered everywhere, empty pizza boxes stacked in the corner, and I felt this cold fear creeping up my spine. Why would Tyler have my credit card? When Tyler came home that evening, I was waiting for him in the kitchen. I had the card sitting on the table between us. "Tyler," I said, trying to keep my voice calm, "I found this in your room. Can you explain why you have my credit card?" The look on his face, I'll never forget it. For just a split second, he looked like a deer caught in headlights. Guilty, panicked, but then he recovered, and that cocky attitude I'd grown used to slid right back into place. "Oh, that," he said, shrugging like it was no big deal. "Mom told me to grab it. We had an emergency." "What kind of emergency?" "Car trouble. Mom's car broke down, and we needed to pay for a tow truck. She said she'd pay you back." Something about his tone didn't sit right with me. Too casual, too rehearsed, but I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him. "How much did you spend?" Another shrug. "I don't know, like 200 maybe? You'd have to ask Mom. $200 for a tow truck. That seemed high, but what did I know? Maybe prices had gone up. Maybe there were other expenses I didn't understand. When Miranda came home an hour later, I asked her about it. She was in the kitchen making dinner, or rather heating up a frozen pizza, and she barely looked at me when I brought it up. "Oh yeah, Dad. Thanks for that. The transmission gave out completely. We had to have it towed to Mike's garage. Tyler said it was $200. Was it? I honestly don't remember. It all happened so fast." She opened the oven and slid the pizza in, still not meeting my eyes. "I'll pay you back as soon as Derek's next paycheck comes in." That should have been the end of it, but something nagged at me. Call it intuition, call it an old man's paranoia, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't getting the whole truth. A few days later, I did something I'd never done before. I called my credit card company and asked about recent transactions. The customer service representative was very helpful, pulling up my account and reading off the charges from the past month. "Let's see, Mr. Whitman. You have a charge for $47.83 at GameStop on October 15th, then $189.45 at Best Buy on October 17th, and $67.20 at Pizza Palace on October 18th. My blood ran cold. GameStop, Best Buy, Pizza Palace, those weren't tow truck charges. Those weren't emergency expenses. "Are you sure about those dates?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, sir. Would you like me to email you a detailed statement?" I hung up the phone and sat there in my kitchen staring at the wall. Tyler had lied to me. Miranda had lied to me. They had used my credit card not for an emergency, but for video games, electronics, and pizza. But it was worse than that. Much worse. When I got that emailed statement and really looked at it, I saw charges going back weeks, months, small amounts here and there that I hadn't noticed because I rarely check my statements that carefully. $20 at a gas station, $50 at Target, $35 at some restaurant I'd never heard of. They had been using my card for months, maybe longer. And every time I'd asked about money or noticed something odd, they'd had an excuse ready, an emergency, a misunderstanding, a mistake. I confronted Miranda that night, really confronted her, not just a casual question while she was busy with something else. I sat her down at the kitchen table and spread out the credit card statements between us. "Miranda," I said, and my voice was stronger than I felt, "we need to talk." She looked at those statements, and I saw something flicker across her face, the same guilty look I'd seen on Tyler's face, but deeper, more resigned. "Dad, I can explain everything." "Then explain. Explain why there are charges on my card that have nothing to do with car repairs. Explain why my grandson lied to my face. Explain why my own daughter has been stealing from me." The word hung in the air between us like a bomb waiting to explode. Stealing. I had said it out loud and there was no taking it back. It's not stealing, she said, but her voice was weak. I was going to pay you back. I always pay you back. When? When have you ever paid me back, Miranda? Name one time. She couldn't. We both knew she couldn't. That night I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, wondering how many other things I'd missed. How many other lies I'd swallowed because I wanted to believe my family was good and honest. I thought the credit card was the worst of it. I thought that was the whole story. I had no idea how wrong I was. The credit card discovery should have been my wake-up call, but I was still living in denial. I wanted to believe Miranda when she promised it would never happen again. I wanted to believe that we could move past this like a family should. I took the credit card back, changed the PIN, and thought that would be the end of it. I was a fool. It was about 3 weeks after our confrontation when the first phone call came. I was having my morning coffee, reading the newspaper like I did every day, when the phone rang at 8:30 a.m. "Is this Harold Whitman?" The voice was rough, unfriendly. "Yes, this is Harold. Mr. Whitman, my name is Vincent Torres. I think we need to have a conversation about your daughter Miranda and the money she owes my associates." The coffee cup slipped from my hands and shattered on the kitchen floor. Hot liquid splashed everywhere, but I barely noticed. My mouth went dry and my heart started hammering in my chest. "I'm sorry, there must be some mistake. I don't know what you're talking about." "No mistake, old man. Your daughter borrowed $15,000 from us 6 months ago. She used your name as a reference, said you were good for it if she couldn't pay. Well, she can't pay, and now we're calling in the guarantee. $15,000. The number hit me like a physical blow. I sank into my kitchen chair, the phone pressed to my ear with a trembling hand. "I never guaranteed anything. I don't know anything about this." Vincent's laugh was cold and humorless. "That's funny because Miranda told us all about your savings account, your property investments, your monthly pension. She was very detailed about your finances, Mr. Whitman. Very confident that her dear old dad would take care of things, if needed." The room started spinning. Miranda had told strangers, dangerous strangers, about my money. She had used me as collateral for loans I never knew existed. "Listen, Harold," Vincent continued, his voice taking on a threatening edge. "We're reasonable people. We understand families have their complications. But money is money, and we expect to be paid. Miranda has missed her last 3 payments. The debt has grown to $18,000 with interest and fees." $18,000, I repeated numbly. "You have 2 weeks to get us our money, or we start collecting in other ways. And trust me, you don't want that." The line went dead. I sat there staring at the broken coffee cup on the floor, my mind reeling. $18,000. Where would I get $18,000? My savings account had maybe $12,000 left after all Miranda's unauthorized withdrawals. The lots were worth something, but selling property takes time. I stumbled upstairs, my legs feeling like rubber. Miranda was in her kitchen, making breakfast for Tyler like nothing in the world was wrong. "Miranda!" My voice came out as a croak. She looked up, and when she saw my face, the color drained from hers. "Dad, what's wrong? You look terrible." Vincent Torres called. She dropped the spatula she was holding. It clattered to the floor, and she made no move to pick it up. "Oh, God," she whispered. $18,000, Miranda. You borrowed $18,000 from loan sharks and used me as collateral without telling me." She sank into a chair, her hands shaking. For the first time since this nightmare began, she looked truly afraid. "Dad, I can explain. Derek lost his job again, and Tyler needed money for school, and the bills were piling up. I thought I could pay it back before you ever found out. I thought Derek would get another job quickly." "You thought? You thought?" My voice was rising, and I didn't care who heard me. "You gambled with my life, Miranda. These people aren't the bank. These people hurt people who don't pay them. I know. Tears were streaming down her face now. "I'm so sorry, Dad. I never meant for it to go this far. I never thought." "That's right. You never thought. About me, about consequences, about anything except what you wanted in the moment." Derek appeared in the doorway, drawn by the shouting. "What's going on? Your wife borrowed $18,000 from criminals and used my name as a guarantee," I said, my voice shaking with rage and fear. "That's what's going on." Derek's face went white. "Miranda, you said you handled that. You said you worked something out with them. You knew." I turned on Derek, seeing him clearly for the first time. "You knew about this and you let her do it?" "Harold, calm down. We'll figure something out. We always do." "We? There is no we in this, Derek. This is my problem now because of your wife's lies." That's when Tyler walked in, earbuds in, completely oblivious to the crisis exploding around him. When he saw all of us standing there, the tears, the anger, the fear, he pulled out his earbuds. "What's everyone freaking out about?" And that's when the second bomb dropped. "Tyler," Miranda said, her voice barely audible, "remember when you needed money for that car down payment? And when you wanted to go on that trip with your friends?" My grandson looked confused. "Yeah, so? Where do you think that money came from?" The truth hit me like a sledgehammer. Tyler had been part of this too. Maybe not knowingly, but he had benefited from money stolen from me. Money borrowed from dangerous people using my name. "How much more, Miranda?" I asked, my voice deadly quiet. "How much more don't I know about?" She couldn't look at me. "There might be. There are other debts, smaller ones, different people." "How much total?" Maybe 30,000 total. $30,000. My entire life savings gone. My security gone. My trust in my family shattered beyond repair. And somewhere out there, dangerous people knew my name, knew where I lived, and expected me to pay for my daughter's lies. The phone rang again, and we all froze. This time I knew it wouldn't be a polite conversation. The second phone call was worse than the first. This time it was a woman's voice, sweet as honey but with steel underneath. "Mr. Whitman, this is Rosa Martinez. I represent certain business interests that your family has been neglecting. We need to meet." I was still standing in Miranda's kitchen, surrounded by the wreckage of my family, when she said those words. Meet. That sounded ominous in ways I couldn't even fully comprehend. "I don't understand." "What business interests?" "Your son-in-law Derek took out a loan with us, $12,000. He's 3 months behind on payments. The debt has grown to $16,000 with our standard fees." I looked at Derek, who had gone from white to green. He was shaking his head frantically, mouthing, "No, no, no," like that would make it all go away. "Ma'am, I never co-signed for any loan with Derek." "Oh, but you did, Mr. Whitman. Your signature is right here on the paperwork. Very clear, very legal. Harold J. Whitman, guarantor. Would you like me to read the document to you?" My knees buckled, and I had to grab the kitchen counter to stay upright. Derek had forged my signature. My own son-in-law had forged my name on loan documents with criminals. "We'll be by tomorrow at 2 p.m. to discuss payment arrangements," Rosa continued. "I suggest you have a plan ready. We're not as patient as Vincent's group." The line went dead. I turned to look at Derek and I saw a stranger, a man who had lived in my house for 8 years, eaten my food, used my utilities, and all that time he'd been signing my name to loan documents. "You forged my signature," I said, my voice hollow. "Harold, I was desperate. We were about to lose everything. I thought I could pay it back before what? Before they came to collect from me? Before they destroyed my life to cover your gambling debts?" "Gambling debts." Miranda turned on her husband. "Derek, you said this money was for Tyler's car." "Some of it was, but I had some bad luck at the casino, and I thought I could win it back if I just had a little more capital." The truth kept pouring out like poison from a broken bottle. Derek had gambling debts, Miranda had shopping addictions, and had been lying about Tyler's expenses. Tyler knew about some of it, but didn't care as long as the money kept flowing. And all of it was being paid for with my name, my credit, my reputation. Over the next week, they came. Vincent Torres and 2 men in expensive suits who looked like they could break bones without breaking a sweat. Rosa Martinez, with her perfectly manicured nails and eyes like a shark. Others too. Apparently my family had been very busy borrowing money from very dangerous people. Each meeting was the same. Polite threats wrapped in business language. They all understood I was innocent, they said. They all sympathized with my situation. But debt was debt, and my name was on the papers. "Your family put you in a difficult position, Mr. Whitman," Vincent told me during one particularly tense conversation in my living room. "But that's between you and them. We just want our money." I tried everything. I went to the police, but they said it was a civil matter until someone actually threatened violence. I went to a lawyer, but he wanted a $5,000 retainer just to look at the case, and even then, he said, getting out of loan shark debts was nearly impossible. "The best advice I can give you," the lawyer said, "is to pay them and then sue your family to recover the money. But that could take years, and these people don't seem like they'll wait years." So I started selling. First, I tried to get loans against my lots, but the bank wanted extensive paperwork and credit checks. When they saw all the recent debt associated with my name, they declined the applications. I had to sell below market value to cash buyers who knew I was desperate. The first lot, which I had bought for $8,000 and which was probably worth $15,000, I sold for $10,000. The second lot went for $9,000. The third, my favorite piece of property that I had planned to maybe build a small house on someday, went for $8,000, $27,000 total. It should have been enough to cover most of the debts, but by the time I paid them all off, including new fees and interest that had accumulated during the sales process, I had $300 left. $300 from lots that represented 15 years of savings and dreams. But the nightmare wasn't over. 2 weeks after I'd paid off the last loan shark, I got a notice from the Social Security Administration. Due to irregularities in reported income and debt obligations, my benefits were being reduced pending a full investigation. Someone had reported additional income sources under my name, income that didn't exist, but which the government now assumed I had been hiding. My monthly pension dropped from $1,800 to $450. $450 a month to live on, to pay utilities, property taxes, food, medicine, everything. And then Tyler, celebrating the fact that all the family drama was over, took my car without asking. He was drunk, I found out later, and wrapped it around a telephone pole on Highway 47. He walked away without a scratch, but my car, my only way to get to the grocery store or the doctor or anywhere else, was totaled. Insurance wouldn't cover it because Tyler wasn't listed as a driver on my policy, and I couldn't afford to add him anyway, not on $450 a month. So there I was, 72 years old, with $450 a month. No car, no savings, no investments, and no family I could trust. All I had left was the house, and I was starting to wonder how long I could afford to keep that. Miranda, Derek, and Tyler were still living upstairs, still expecting me to pay the utilities, still treating me like the problem in their lives. They had destroyed me financially, emotionally, and socially, and they acted like I should be grateful that they were still willing to live in my house. I spent my days sitting in my kitchen, staring at bills I couldn't pay, wondering how my life had come to this, wondering if this was how I was going to die, broke, alone, and betrayed by the people I loved most. I thought about Sarah, about the promises I'd made to her. I'd failed. I'd failed to protect our daughter from becoming a person who could do this to her own father. I'd failed to build the kind of family legacy she'd wanted. I thought about giving up, about selling the house and moving into some government housing somewhere, spending my last years as a welfare case. But then, on a Tuesday morning in late spring, my phone rang, and for the first time in months, it wasn't someone looking to collect money I didn't have. It was someone I hadn't heard from in years. Someone I'd given up hope of ever hearing from again. "Dad, it's Marcus. I heard you might need some help." The weeks after losing everything were the darkest of my entire life. Darker than when Sarah died, darker than when I was working 2 jobs and barely making ends meet. At least then I had hope. At least then I had something to work toward. Now I had nothing. $450 a month doesn't go far when you're trying to maintain a house. The property taxes alone were $300 a month. That left me with $150 for everything else. Electricity, gas, water, food, medicine for my blood pressure and arthritis. I started doing things I never thought I'd have to do. I clipped coupons obsessively, driving myself crazy over saving 30 cents on a can of soup. I turned off the heat except in my bedroom, wearing 2 sweaters indoors during the cold months. I ate 1 meal a day, usually canned soup or a peanut butter sandwich, and told myself I wasn't really that hungry anyway. The worst part was shopping for groceries. I'd stand in the aisles of the supermarket, calculator in hand, adding up prices down to the penny. Other customers would get impatient behind me as I put items back because I couldn't afford them. Apples were too expensive. Meat was a luxury I couldn't justify. I lived on bread, peanut butter, canned soup, and whatever was marked down in the clearance section. One day I found myself standing in the cereal aisle, staring at a box of the kind Tyler liked. It was on sale for $3.49. I stood there for 10 minutes, holding that box, remembering how Tyler used to come downstairs when he was younger, and I'd make him breakfast before school. How he'd talk about his friends and his classes while he ate. I put the box back. I couldn't afford $3.49 for cereal for a grandson who wouldn't even look at me anymore. Meanwhile, upstairs, life went on like nothing had happened. Derek had found another job, temporary work, but work nonetheless. Tyler was talking about going back to school, maybe community college this time. Miranda was making plans for redecorating their part of the house. They were living normally while I was slowly starving 1 floor below them. The isolation was almost worse than the poverty. I had no car, so I couldn't visit old friends or go anywhere, except where I could walk. The nearest grocery store was a mile away, which doesn't sound like much until you're 72 with bad knees and carrying bags of groceries. I tried to maintain my dignity. When the neighbors asked how I was doing, I'd smile and say, "Fine, just fine." When I ran into old co-workers at the store, I'd make small talk about the weather and avoid mentioning that I was buying day-old bread and dented cans. But inside, I was dying a little more each day. The breaking point came on a Tuesday in June. I was sitting at my kitchen table looking at a stack of bills I couldn't pay when I heard laughter from upstairs. Tyler was having friends over, and they were playing music and having what sounded like a party. The electricity bill was past due. The gas company had sent a final notice. My medicine was running low, and I didn't have money to refill the prescription. And upstairs, my family was having a party. I climbed the stairs, slowly because the arthritis in my knees was particularly bad that day, and knocked on their door. Miranda answered, and I could see past her into their living room, pizza boxes on the coffee table, beer bottles, Tyler and 3 of his friends playing video games on a big screen TV I'd never seen before. "Dad, what's wrong? You look upset. Where did you get the money for all this?" I asked, gesturing toward the party supplies, the new TV, the expensive-looking speakers they had set up. "Derek got paid today. We're just celebrating a little. The electricity bill is $300 past due, Miranda. They're going to shut it off tomorrow." She looked uncomfortable, shifting from foot to foot. "Dad, that's not really our responsibility. You own the house. You live in the house. You use the electricity." "We pay rent," Derek called from the couch, not even bothering to look away from the TV. "What rent? You've never paid me a dime of rent." "We pay rent to live here," Derek repeated. "Just because we pay it differently doesn't mean we don't pay it." I stared at him, not understanding. "What are you talking about?" Miranda sighed, like I was being particularly dense. "Dad, we take care of you. We make sure you're not alone. We keep you company. That's worth something, isn't it?" The audacity of it hit me like a slap. They thought their mere presence in my house was payment for utilities, food and shelter. They thought I should be grateful that they allowed me to support them. You think your company is worth $300 a month in electricity? Plus gas, plus water, plus all the other stuff, Tyler said, finally looking up from his game. Plus, like, emotional support and whatever. Grandpa, you'd be totally alone without us. Emotional support from people who ignored me, disrespected me, and had financially destroyed me. I went back downstairs and called the electric company. I asked if there was any kind of assistance program for seniors, any way to get an extension on the bill. "I'm sorry, Mr. Whitman," the customer service representative said, "but your account shows multiple past due notices. The disconnect order has already been processed. You'll need to pay the full amount plus a reconnection fee to restore service." That night I sat in my dark kitchen. I turned off all the lights to save what little electricity I had left, and seriously considered ending it all. Not in a dramatic way, just giving up, selling the house for whatever I could get, and moving into one of those government housing projects where old people go to die. At least there, I thought, the electricity would be included. I was 72 years old. I had worked my entire life, paid my taxes, raised my family, followed all the rules, and this was where it had gotten me. Sitting alone in the dark, hungry, broke, and betrayed by the people I'd sacrificed everything for. I thought about Sarah, about what she would say if she could see me now. Would she blame me for being too trusting? Would she blame herself for not raising Miranda better? Would she even recognize the man I'd become? Bitter, defeated, hopeless. But just when I thought I'd hit absolute rock bottom, when I was ready to surrender completely, my phone rang. It was late, almost 10 o'clock, and I almost didn't answer. These days, late phone calls usually meant bill collectors or more bad news, but something made me pick it up. "Dad?" The voice was older, deeper than I remembered, but I knew it instantly. Marcus, my son, my firstborn, the child I'd lost to pride and stubbornness and my own mistakes years ago. "Marcus," my voice cracked saying his name. "Dad, I've been trying to reach you for weeks. I heard about what's been happening. I think it's time we talked." For the first time in months, I felt something that might have been hope. Marcus arrived on a Saturday morning, driving a black BMW that looked like it cost more than I used to make in 2 years. I watched through my kitchen window as he got out of the car, tall, confident, wearing a suit that fit him perfectly. He looked successful in a way that made my heart swell with pride and break with regret at the same time. I hadn't seen my older son in 8 years. Marcus was from my first relationship, before I met Sarah. His mother, Linda, and I were young and foolish, and when she got pregnant, we tried to make it work. It lasted until Marcus was 5, when Linda moved across the country with her new husband. I fought for visitation rights, sent money when I could, but the distance and time slowly pulled us apart. When I married Sarah and Miranda was born, I'm ashamed to say I let that gap grow wider. It wasn't intentional, but Miranda became my focus, my daily reality. Marcus became the son I talked to on holidays and sent birthday cards to. The son I loved, but never really knew. The last time we'd spoken was 8 years ago, at a family gathering where Miranda had made it clear she didn't consider Marcus real family. She'd been rude, dismissive, and I'd failed to stand up for him the way I should have. Marcus left early that day, and I never heard from him again, until now. I opened the door before he could knock, and for a moment, we just stood there looking at each other. He was 48 now, with grey at his temples and lines around his eyes that spoke of hard work and responsibility. But his smile was the same one I remembered from when he was a little boy. "Hello, Dad." Marcus. I couldn't manage anything else. My throat was too tight with emotion. He stepped forward and hugged me, and I felt how thin I'd gotten, how frail I must have seemed in his strong arms. When he pulled back, I saw concern and anger warring in his expression. "Jesus, Dad, you look old, tired, broke." I tried to smile, but it felt weak. "Hungry," he said quietly. "You look hungry." That's when I started crying. Right there in my doorway, in front of my successful son in his expensive suit, I broke down like a child. All the months of pride and pretense crumbled away, and I sobbed like I hadn't cried since Sarah's funeral. Marcus guided me to the kitchen table and sat across from me, waiting patiently while I pulled myself together. When I could finally speak again, he leaned forward with his hands clasped. Tell me everything, Dad. Start from the beginning. So I did. I told him about Miranda and Derek moving in, about the years of disrespect and financial manipulation, about the credit cards and the loan sharks and losing the lots, about my reduced pension and Tyler destroying my car, about living on $450 a month while my family partied upstairs. Marcus listened without interrupting, but I could see his jaw tightening with each revelation. When I finished, he sat back in his chair and was quiet for a long moment. "Dad," he said finally, "I need to tell you something. This isn't the first time Miranda has tried to manipulate family finances." My heart sank. "What do you mean?" 3 years ago, she contacted me, said you were having money troubles and needed help. She asked me to send funds directly to her, so you wouldn't feel embarrassed about accepting help from me. The room started spinning again. "You sent her money?" $5,000. She said it was for your medical bills and house repairs. She made me promise not to contact you directly because you were too proud to accept help. I put my head in my hands. Even Marcus, even my son who lived across the country and barely spoke to us, had been pulled into Miranda's web of lies. "But that's not the worst part," Marcus continued. "About 6 months ago, she called me again. This time, she said you were developing dementia and that you'd named her as your power of attorney. She wanted me to sign papers that would remove you from any inheritance of your mother's estate." I looked up sharply. "My mother's estate? Dad, did you forget? Grandma left that property in Tennessee to both of us. It's been in trust for years, but it's worth about $40,000 now. Miranda tried to get me to sign papers that would transfer your half to her for your own protection." Another betrayal, another lie. Miranda had been trying to steal not just my present, but my future, and Marcus's inheritance too. "I didn't sign anything," Marcus said quickly. "In fact, that's when I started asking around about what was really going on. I hired a private investigator to check on the family finances." He pulled out a thick folder from his briefcase. "Dad, what Miranda and Derek have done to you isn't just morally wrong, it's criminal. Identity theft, forgery, elder abuse. We have enough evidence here to put them both in prison." I stared at the folder, filled with documents I couldn't even comprehend. "Prison? Dad, they've been systematically robbing you for years. They forged your signature on multiple loan documents. They opened credit cards in your name. They've committed wire fraud, mail fraud, and about 6 other felonies." The magnitude of what he was saying slowly sank in. This wasn't just family drama or poor financial decisions. This was organized, deliberate criminal activity. "But they're family," I said weakly. Marcus leaned across the table and took my hands in his. "Dad, family doesn't do this to each other. What they did to you, they would do to a stranger. They saw you as a resource to be exploited, not as a person to be loved." From upstairs came the sound of laughter and music. Miranda's family, living their normal lives while I sat downstairs, planning their destruction. "What do you want to do, Dad?" Marcus asked. "Because I can fix this. I can fix all of it, but it means fighting back. It means not being the nice guy anymore." I thought about all those years of being the nice guy. All those years of making excuses for Miranda's behavior, of accepting disrespect in the name of family harmony, of sacrificing my own needs for people who saw my sacrifices as weakness. I thought about Sarah and what she would say if she knew her daughter had become someone who could steal from her own father. I thought about the nights I'd gone to bed hungry while they ordered pizza upstairs. "What exactly are you proposing?" I asked. Marcus smiled, and for the first time in months, I saw something in someone's eyes that looked like justice. "I'm proposing we give them exactly what they deserve," he said. "And I'm proposing we make sure you never have to worry about money again." For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt like I wasn't alone. I had an ally. I had someone who understood that what had been done to me was wrong, and who had the resources and knowledge to fight back. The war was about to begin. Marcus didn't waste any time. Within 3 days of our conversation, he had moved me into a hotel across town, just temporarily, Dad, while we sort this out, and had begun what he called the process. I'd never seen anyone work like Marcus did. He had lawyers, accountants, private investigators, and people whose job titles I didn't even understand. They descended on my situation like a well-organized army, and suddenly I understood why my son had been so successful in life. The first thing we need to do, Marcus explained as we sat in his hotel suite, is protect you legally and financially. Then we prosecute them. Then we recover what we can of your assets. He'd already started the protection phase. Within 48 hours, he'd filed papers with the court declaring me a victim of elder abuse and identity theft. He'd also transferred the house into a trust with himself as the trustee, which meant Miranda and her family could no longer use it as collateral for anything. But they're still living there, I said, watching Marcus organize documents on the hotel room desk. Not for long. The next phase was documentation. Marcus's private investigator, a sharp-eyed woman named Janet Reeves, had been building a case against Miranda and Derek for weeks. She spread photographs, bank records, and legal documents across the coffee table like pieces of a puzzle. "Your daughter is not a smart criminal," Janet said, pointing to a stack of forged documents. "She used the same pen for your signatures across multiple documents, and she didn't even try to match your actual handwriting style. A handwriting expert will demolish these in court." She showed me credit card applications with my forged signature, loan documents I'd never seen, and even lease agreements where Miranda had tried to rent out my property to strangers without my knowledge. "The pattern is clear," Janet continued. "This was systematic, ongoing fraud. They've been planning to bleed you dry for years, but the most damning evidence was electronic. Derek's gambling addiction had left a clear digital trail. Online casino accounts, sports betting sites, cryptocurrency investments gone wrong, all funded with money stolen from me. He lost over $60,000 gambling in the past 2 years, Janet said. Money that came directly from your accounts and from loans taken out in your name. $60,000 gone. Gambled away while I was eating 1 meal a day and wearing 2 sweaters to save on heating bills." Marcus noticed my expression. "Dad, are you having second thoughts about this?" I thought about Miranda as a little girl, how she used to climb into my lap and ask me to read her stories. I thought about the promises I'd made to Sarah about taking care of our daughter. But then I thought about the phone calls from loan sharks. I thought about having to choose between medicine and food. I thought about sitting in my dark kitchen, wondering if I was going to die alone and broke because of my own family's greed. "No," I said, "no second thoughts." Marcus nodded and pulled out another set of documents. "Good, because Janet found something else. Something that changes everything." He handed me a legal document with my signature on it, except I knew I'd never signed it. "What is this?" "It's a will, Dad, dated 6 months ago. According to this document, you've left everything to Miranda and explicitly disinherited me." The blood drained from my face. "I never signed this. We know. The signature is forged, and we can prove it. But Dad, if anything had happened to you, if you'd had a heart attack, if you'd fallen down the stairs, Miranda would have inherited everything based on this fake will, and there would have been no one left to challenge it." The implication hit me like a physical blow. Miranda hadn't just been stealing from me. She'd been preparing for me to die, planning for it, maybe even hoping for it. "They were going to kill me," I whispered. "We don't have evidence of that," Marcus said carefully, "but they certainly weren't concerned about your welfare. Janet found evidence that they'd been looking into nursing homes, trying to have you declared incompetent." The betrayal went deeper than I'd imagined. My daughter hadn't just stolen my money. She'd been trying to steal my entire life. The prosecution phase began the following week. Marcus had hired one of the best criminal attorneys in the state, a woman named Catherine Rodriguez, who specialized in elder abuse cases. "This is actually a very strong case," Catherine told us during our first meeting. "The evidence is overwhelming, and the pattern of abuse is clear. I expect we'll see guilty pleas on multiple charges." She was right. When the FBI agents, yes, it had become a federal case because of the interstate banking fraud, showed up at my house with arrest warrants, Miranda and Derek collapsed immediately. I wasn't there to see it, but Marcus was. He told me later that Miranda had begged to speak to me, had cried, and said she never meant for things to go so far. "What did you tell her?" I asked. "I told her she could explain everything to her lawyer." Derek lasted exactly 3 hours in federal custody before he started confessing to everything. The gambling, the forgeries, the loan shark arrangements. He threw Miranda under the bus so fast it would have been funny if it weren't so pathetic. Tyler was arrested too, on charges of credit card fraud and conspiracy. Turns out he'd known about most of it and had been actively participating in using my identity for various scams. But the sweetest moment came when Catherine called to tell us about the plea agreements. "Miranda pled guilty to 7 felony counts," she said. "She'll serve 4 to 6 years in federal prison. Derek got 8 to 10 years. His gambling addiction and prior record worked against him. Tyler, as a first-time offender, got 2 years and 5 years probation." "What about restitution?" Marcus asked. "Full restitution, plus penalties and interest. They're also required to liquidate all assets acquired with stolen funds." Within a month, everything had changed. Miranda, Derek, and Tyler were in federal custody awaiting sentencing. Their cars, electronics, jewelry, everything they'd bought with my money was being sold to pay restitution. The house was quiet for the first time in 8 years. But Marcus wasn't done yet. He'd been working on something he called the recovery phase. And when he showed me the numbers, I nearly fell out of my chair. "The Tennessee property sold for $52,000, he said. "Your half is $26,000. The restitution payments will be about $40,000 over the next 5 years. And I've been working with Social Security to get your benefits restored. They should go back to full amount once the investigation concludes." He handed me a bank statement with my name on it. The balance showed $34,847. "I don't understand," I said, staring at the number. "Dad, you're not just surviving this. You're winning. You're getting your life back, and they're getting exactly what they deserve." For the first time in years, I wasn't worried about paying bills. For the first time since this nightmare began, I could afford groceries without counting every penny. But more than that, I had my dignity back. I had justice. I had a son who'd fought for me when no one else would. And somewhere in a federal holding facility, 3 people who'd thought they could destroy an old man's life were learning that actions have consequences. The war was over, and for once in my life, I'd won. 6 months later, I'm sitting in my kitchen, the same kitchen where I discovered those bank statements, where I received those threatening phone calls, where I sat in the dark wondering if my life was over. But everything is different now. The house is quiet, peaceful in a way it hasn't been in 8 years. I can watch my television programs without hearing music blasting from upstairs. I can cook dinner without someone complaining about the smell. I can exist in my own home without feeling like an unwelcome guest. Marcus comes by twice a week now. We're rebuilding the relationship that should have been there all along, making up for years of lost time and misplaced priorities. He helped me buy a new car. Nothing fancy, just a reliable Honda that gets me where I need to go. He also insisted on upgrading my phone and teaching me how to use something called video calling, so we can talk face-to-face even when he's traveling for work. My Social Security benefits were fully restored once the federal investigation concluded. $1,800 a month plus the restitution payments coming in means I'm more financially secure now than I've been in years. I can afford my medications, I can buy groceries without a calculator, and I even splurged on a new recliner for the living room. The physical evidence of my family's betrayal is gone, but the emotional scars run deeper. I still find myself checking my bank statements obsessively, still feel a jolt of panic when the phone rings unexpectedly. Trust, once broken so completely, doesn't heal easily. Last month I received a letter from Miranda. It was forwarded through the prison system, written on institutional paper in her familiar handwriting. She wanted to apologize, she said. She wanted me to understand that she never meant for things to go as far as they did. "I know you probably hate me," she wrote, "but you're still my father and I love you. I think about you every day and wonder if you'll ever be able to forgive me." I read that letter 3 times before I filed it away in my desk drawer. I haven't responded and I'm not sure I ever will. Some betrayals cut too deep for words to heal. Derek's letter arrived a week later. Unlike Miranda's tearful apology, his was angry, defiant. He blamed me for destroying his family and claimed that sending him to prison was cruel and vindictive. He said I should have handled things within the family instead of involving the law. I threw that letter away without finishing it. Tyler wrote too, asking if I would send him money for the prison commissary. The audacity of it actually made me laugh. A bitter, sad laugh, but a laugh nonetheless. Even in federal prison, even after everything that had happened, he still thought I was someone he could use. The sentencing hearings were harder than I expected. I had to testify about the impact their crimes had on my life, had to sit in a courtroom and describe the fear, the hunger, the desperation they'd put me through. Miranda cried throughout my testimony. Derek stared at the floor. Tyler looked bored. "Mr. Whitman," the judge said when I finished speaking, "I want you to know that what was done to you represents one of the most callous examples of elder abuse this court has seen. The defendants didn't just steal your money, they stole your peace of mind, your trust in family, and nearly your will to live." Miranda got 6 years. Derek got 10. Tyler got 2 years, followed by 5 years of supervised probation. They'll all be required to continue making restitution payments until every penny is repaid with interest. 6 years. Miranda will be 51 when she gets out, assuming she serves her full sentence. I'll be 78. We'll both be different people by then, shaped by time and consequences in ways we can't predict now. Sometimes I wonder if I'll still be alive when she's released. Sometimes I wonder if I'll want to see her if I am. The hardest part about all of this isn't the money they stole or even the trust they broke. It's the realization that the family I thought I had never really existed, the daughter I raised, the one I sacrificed everything for, was capable of systematic cruelty toward the person who loved her most. But there's been healing too, unexpected and profound. Marcus and I have grown closer than we ever were when he was young. We talk about everything now, his work, his own struggles, his regrets about the years we lost. He's helped me understand that family isn't just about blood relations. It's about people who show up for you when you need them most. I've also reconnected with old friends from work, men I'd lost touch with over the years. We meet for coffee twice a week at a diner downtown, and they've welcomed me back into their circle like I never left. They listen to my story without judgment, and they share their own struggles with aging, with adult children, with the complications of growing old in a world that seems designed for younger people. Last week, one of them, Frank Rodriguez, told me about his grandson, who's been asking him for money constantly, always with some new emergency or crisis. "I keep giving it to him," Frank said, "because he's family, you know?" I looked at my friend, this good man who'd worked hard all his life, who deserved to enjoy his retirement in peace, and I saw myself 2 years ago. "Frank," I said, "let me tell you something about family." The conversation that followed was hard, but necessary. I shared what I'd learned about the difference between helping family and enabling them, between love and manipulation, between being generous and being taken advantage of. I don't know if Frank will take my advice, but at least now he knows he has options. He knows that setting boundaries isn't cruel, that protecting yourself isn't selfish, and that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable destructive behavior. That's become my mission now, in whatever years I have left. Marcus has introduced me to support groups for elder abuse survivors, and I've started speaking about my experience. It's painful to relive it each time, but if my story can help even one person avoid what I went through, then something good will have come from all this pain. The other day I was working in my garden. I can afford to plant flowers again now that I'm not worried about every dollar. When I found myself thinking about Sarah, about what she would think of how everything turned out, I think she'd be proud of me for finally standing up for myself. She'd be heartbroken about Miranda, but proud that I didn't let them destroy me completely. She'd be happy that Marcus and I found our way back to each other, and I think she'd understand that sometimes love means letting people face the consequences of their choices, even when those people are your own children. The sun was setting as I finished planting my tomatoes, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that reminded me of better times. For the first time in years, I felt something that might have been peace. My family destroyed my trust, stole my money, and nearly broke my spirit, but they didn't win. But in the end, justice prevailed, truth came to light, and the people who tried to destroy me are the ones who lost everything. I'm 72 years old, and I'm finally free. Free from fear, free from manipulation, free from people who saw my love as weakness to be exploited. It's never too late to start over. It's never too late to demand better. And it's never too late to learn that sometimes the family you choose is more valuable than the family you're born with. The war is over. I'm still standing, and that's victory enough.